Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Gary Smalley.
Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone said this to you yet, but this was the most enthusiastic city of all the ones we've done in the country. You guys had more right from the very beginning than any other city, and you sold out first, so I just want you to give yourself a hand because you did a super job. So we have been just very excited to be up here, and I've been excited about sharing. We have 2 sessions we're teaching tonight, and I'm excited about both of them, and I know that you're going to go away from here with a whole new sense of hope and encouragement about all your relationships, single or married, parenting, your relationships at work, and so on. So, and I'm sure some of you are thinking that by now, Smalley must be getting like a big head, because, all those years on television, selling all those videos. In fact, how many of you have seen at least one of those ones that we sold on TV, Hidden Keys? Let's see. Okay, looks about 80% of you or so. And then you're saying, and now he's got his, picture on this book, and he's doing this big tour, and so his head's got to be swelling. And I'm here to tell you that there's enough things that happen in life to just keep us, nailed to the earth, right? Just normal stuff. Like I've gotten to be, through the years, developed some good friendships, and now some of them are different, cities we were at. And so in one particular city, Portland, I actually was with one of my best friends that I went to high school and college with, and he was going to go visit his father, who was in a retirement home. And I said, I'll go with you. He said, okay. And so we went over, and I said, hey, you go see him, and I'll just sit out here in the waiting area, and I'll read this paper, because, I want to just relax. And so I sit down to read the paper, and this woman who's a resident there, she strikes up this conversation with me, so I really never get to read the paper, but she's just a talker. And I was kind of impressed with her. She had to be in her 90s. And I was pretty impressed. We engaged each other for the entire time. Finally, my friend comes out, and I never did look at the paper. And I stand up, and I thank her, and I said, by the way, do you know who I am? And she said, no, but if you go down to the front office, they'll tell you who you are. So, all these little things that happen to humble us. And then there's just the other things, like I have 4 grandkids now. I had 2 of them actually born during this tour, but I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. She calls me, watch how this keeps you humble. She calls me Tampa, which is close to one particular word we can all think of, okay? But it's not as bad as my grandson. He's almost 3 now, and he calls me Crapaw. He does. And I've been working with him for a year, to get this right, and it'll take a little while longer, I'm sure, before that actually happens. In fact, grandparents, you hear about the grandkids that went to their grandpa and said, Grandpa, can you make the sound of a frog? He said, I don't know. He said, why do you ask? Well, Grandma said that when Grandpa croaks, we're all going to Disney World. So this is the things that keep us all humble, aren't they? So anyway. Well, both of these sessions have good news and bad news, okay? I want to share the bad news with this first session. And the bad news is this. All couples are incompatible when they marry. All couples are. Did any of you marry somebody that had their own opinion? Let's just see here, okay? See, which means you're going to have just your normal, everyday, natural conflicts. You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have all kinds of... Why do we have so many conflicts after we get married? Because we don't think a lot of this stuff is coming. It's because we are so different. Male and female differences. Millions of those. Every cell in our body is different in each other's body. So we know there's going to be a gazillion different differences there. Then you've got the extrovert-introvert that tends to attract each other, okay? My wife's the introvert, I'm the extrovert. I'm spontaneous, you know. I like to process by thinking out loud. She likes to hear a few facts, go all by herself, be alone, and process for a day or two, you know, and that drives me nuts, okay? In fact, I do the spontaneous things. It takes my wife about 2 weeks to do something spontaneous. So those things, you know what I mean? Those things can keep us in turmoil, especially the first several years. But one of the biggest differences that I'm aware of are the personality differences. And for some reason we tend, this is the tendency, and this is the majority of couples, tend to marry somebody that has whatever you're weak in personality-wise, you tend to marry somebody that has the strength in that area. I don't know why that is, okay? But one of the biggest combinations with the most conflicts and difficulties, the incompatibility area, is what we call the lion personality. That's the person that's decisive, you know, makes those decisions, you know, is strong. They're either the president of their company or they think they are. Okay, so, you know what I mean? And they almost always marry the person we call the golden retriever personality. Now, we're going to be a combination of four, but a lot of people have a lot of this golden retriever tendency. That's the person that's like real sensitive. They hate conflicts. They're very loyal, okay? And the reason they're attracted is because the lion finally finds somebody that'll listen to them and do what they say. Basically is what that is, okay? Then they get married and have all kinds of conflicts, and that could be male, female, either one of them could be a lion. In fact, just out of curiosity, how many of you have that combination? Let me see your hands. See, there's thousands of them here, right? Well, I want you to raise your hand because we're going to pray for you right over here at the intermission. Because you need a lot of prayer, as you know. Lots of potential conflicts. So the bad news is there's just so many differences between us that we're going to have disagreements and we're going to have conflicts. We're going to have arguments. We're going to have fights. How many of you had a good old argument, at least one in the last month? Let's see your hands, okay? All right, good. I could have asked today, but I didn't want to make it, you know, too fresh. Because I don't want you to think of the one you had on the way here. Because I know many of you did, okay? Because that's so normal. And I want to say this right up front. The good news is that conflicts are not only healthy, they're necessary for you to become intimate as a couple. Isn't that something? It's hard to believe, isn't it? And we're going to explain it during this hour. Two of my favorite, world famous now, divorce prevention experts are Dr. Howard Markman and Dr. Scott Stanley. Even in their book, Fighting for Your Marriage, they outline, it's a classic. They outline, listen to this, these two men, after studying marriages for well over 20 years, they can predict today with over 90% accuracy whether a couple is going to divorce, and they can even do it with a couple that's engaged. They have a 32-question quiz in there that instantaneously can predict how you're going to do. Isn't that awesome? I love it. Because I've been married for 32 years, and I used to pray that surely somebody in this world is doing that kind of research. Sure enough, two men have been doing it for years, plus a lot of other experts in this country. Even more exciting to me is that these men have discovered 4 reasons why couples divorce. 4! It's not 50. It's not all kinds of real complicated things. It's 4 basic reasons why we divorce. We have 50% of our marriages end in divorce. And about the years of 5 to 7 are the real crucial years. I don't know where you are in that journey, but that's the crucial years because these 4 things crop up and kill our love. And in fact, in the second session, you will hear why these 4 things kill love. Now, I've been in this work, helping families and marriages, and I've been excited about learning, and I will continue to learn a lot of great things for over 25 years. You'd think I'd get this down, wouldn't you? Huh? I've made my living, as a matter of fact, explaining how many goof-ups I've done in my life. But 3 years ago, at 6 in the morning in Hawaii, at a very special time we took as a staff, my staff, I was going to have a marriage seminar on Friday and Saturday. This is Monday, so it's 4 days away from a marriage seminar. My wife and I managed, and I really managed to do this, to violate all 4 of these divorce risk factors in 1 hour. I mean, they can happen just like that. And if we don't understand what's going on, these things can mess with our relationships, single or married, and they can start to deteriorate. So I want to share all 4 of them with you after I give you the scenario of what happened in Hawaii, and I'll show you how easy we got into this. I didn't premeditate any of this. Never dreamed this was going to happen. I get up at 6, about 5 to 6. We don't have the curtains pulled in. We're about the 18th floor overlooking Honolulu Bay. It's where you're supposed to be romantic, right? I got into the spirit of that in the morning. I get up. I go outside. She's sound asleep. I sneak out. I see the sun's not up yet, but everything's lit up. And the water is just blue, and there's no waves, there's no wind, and I can see the sun's in about 10 minutes going to come over Diamond Head. And I'm thinking, wow, is this breathtaking or romantic or what? You know what came to my mind as an impulsive extrovert? I thought, you know what would be fun to do out here on the patio area with the sun coming up and the water so blue? It would be to talk about our marriage goals for the coming year. Hey, it's made sense to me with my personality, okay? So I go in, because I didn't want to be out there alone and see the sun come up all by myself. So I go in and I wake her up and say, hey, I'm right next to her. I say, hey. She wakes up, she says, what? I said, how'd you like to come out on the patio with me? You won't believe how beautiful it is. And the sun's about to come up and I want to share this with you. And I said, and we can talk about some of our marriage goals for the coming year. What do you think? And she says, it's 6. I told you last night I wanted to sleep till 7. I said, I don't remember that. I didn't, okay? And I said, come on, I don't want to be out there alone. She said, I don't want to get up. I want to sleep for another hour. Would you pull that curtain shut? And I'm playful, okay? And so is she most of the time. So I take the covers and I pull them off her. I say, come on. We're on vacation. Let's get up and enjoy the day. Let's start early. She pulls it back up and she says, I said I want to sleep for another hour and you're waking me up. And I pull them off again because I'm really playful, okay? And I grab her by the legs and I start pulling her out of bed. Hey, when you're playful, you're playful. So it didn't go over at all, and she says something that really hurts my feelings. And so I retaliated. I said a couple little cute things to her. And so we did have our 1-hour discussion, okay? But it wasn't about our marriage goals. And she got dressed, and she stopped speaking. She got dressed, and she said, I'm going to breakfast. And I think I heard her whisper, and I hope you're not following me. She leaves, shuts the door. I'm on the 18th floor in my room in romantic Hawaii with a wife who's not speaking to me, okay? And I only have 4 days before our marriage seminar. And I don't know about you, but I don't like doing marriage seminars when my wife's not speaking to me. So seconds later, the knock on the door, and I open the door. It's my son, Greg, who's getting his doctorate in marriage and family. And he walks in, he says, Dad, I just saw Mom. What'd you do to her? I said, I don't know. It happened so quickly, you know. He says, Dad, you really know better. I said, I know. I mean, those things happen, don't they? Just fast. You think I premeditated any of this? No. So then seconds later, another knock on the door. We open the door. She walks right by my son, Suzette, her best friend, who also works with us. She comes right up to my face. She says, nice going. Now you've wrecked my day because she's not talking to me either. What'd you do to her? And I said, wow, you know. So I know how to warm up a relationship, right? I mean, that's what I do. So during the day, in the lobby, this is the hotel, we're going to have our marriage seminar in 4 days. I grab her hand, okay? She slings it down like that, okay? And I look around real fast to see if anybody would, you know, registered for the seminar. And if I saw a name tag, I could say, hey, we're going to be okay by Friday. Trust me, okay? It's going to work out, okay? So, well, this actually happened. That night, one of our staff members got engaged, and we went out afterwards to have some ice cream, just the whole staff, okay? We're celebrating their engagement as part of it. And so I'm trying to pay the woman for the ice cream, and she doesn't pay attention to me. She kind of leans over to the young couple that are engaged, because I had already announced it, and she said, I don't know you, and this young couple, but she said, I have some marriage advice for you. She said, there's this guy on television. She said, I think his name is Gary Smalley, and he has these videos. And she said, we got him as a couple, and they've really helped our marriage, and I would encourage you to buy him next time you see him. So this young girl looks at me and thinks I set this up, and I said, I didn't have anything to do with this. She says, well, that's Gary Smalley trying to pay you right there. The woman screams and comes around, gives me a big hug, okay? It's a big scene. So now we're leaving. My wife, Norma, walks over next to me, puts her arms around me, gets up right close to my ear, and she says, you ought to order those videos. Well, I mean, I know you've done the same kinds of things because you're normal and human, so we all get into these things, but look how I violated, really, we both did, because we were both responsible for this, all 4 of the risk factors for divorce or weak relationships, all 4 of them. The first one, number 1, which is one of the worst ones, incidentally, is when one or both of you withdraws during an argument. If we withdraw, in other words, if you avoid your mate during an argument, disagreement, a fight, conflict, you say, I don't want to talk about that. Nope. No, don't get into that. No, I don't want to talk about that. So you walk away, okay? It's one of the worst things we can do. A lot of people think that those things are healthy. They are not healthy. They damage your marriage and your friendships and your parenting relationships. Guess who withdraws most of the time? I'll step down here a little ways and just ask. Guess who withdraws most of the time? Men or women? I can't really tell. I'm hearing women. It's actually men. 85% of the time, the people who withdraw are men. 85% of the time, ladies, that's almost 100%, isn't it? Only 15% of the withdrawers are female, and this is one of the worst things we can do in our marriage. And I know some of you ladies are thinking, I knew it. I mean, it's always a man's fault, isn't it? Huh? Is that what we live with, guys? It's always our fault, isn't it, okay? Now, ladies, before you get too excited, guys, you're going to love this. Before you get too excited, guess why the average man withdraws? Two main reasons. Number 1, we don't feel safe arguing with you without rules. You see, men do not fight without rules. Basketball, football, boxing, war, the Geneva Convention. We don't fight without rules, ladies. But guess what? You don't need rules to fight. But and therefore you think that we're just like you. See, we are not like you. And therefore we get easily upset in an argument. Why? Because males tend to be easily flooded by your many words in an argument. You know what that means to be flooded? It means the air is leaving the room. We go like this. Okay? Because we want to go where there's air, and that's away from you, isn't it? Okay? So, isn't that amazing, ladies? Did you have any idea that one of the main causes of divorce is because we feel unsafe arguing with you? I bet you never would have dreamed that, because I wouldn't have. Because, see, I'm the aggressor in our marriage. My wife is in the 15%. She's the withdrawer. I'm the one that wants to verbally get this thing on and stay on until we get a solution. I could wear her out. I could argue with her for 3 hours and love every minute of it. Okay? She hates that. The word meeting to her, I can't even use anymore. I can't say, hey, let's have a meeting. Her hands start to sweat. Because, see, for years I abused that without even realizing it. No wonder she withdrew. So I can't do that anymore, okay? Which I don't do. I know that one of the big differences, or the reason, let's say, that we withdraw is because of the fundamental difference between men and women, basically, okay? You know when I think the difference between men and women starts? Right at conception. Have you ever wondered why it takes millions of sperm and only one egg to make a baby? See, I believe it's because not one of those little stinkers will stop and ask for directions. Guys, it starts right from the beginning, doesn't it? Okay? So we're so different. But listen to what Dr. Stephen Covey says. Now, this is the kind of stuff, here's a man who's watched this stuff for years, not only in business, but in marriages and families, friendships. He says, and I agree with him, all conflicts in marriage are due to somebody's feelings and needs aren't being understood and valued. But guess what else? Intimacy in marriage. You know the most satisfying parts that couples have been able to describe in the research? The most satisfying parts of being married is feeling intimate. You know what that means? Feeling safe to share your feelings and needs with your mate and know they'll be understood and cared for or valued or treasured. When you feel safe to do that, that's intimacy. That's very satisfying. Therefore, all conflicts are doorways to intimacy. So you can either argue in honor or argue in dishonor. If you argue in dishonor, you will withdraw. If you argue in honor, you will stay engaged and become intimate. Wow. It's not that complicated, is it? So that's the first one, withdrawing during an argument. And so it's very important to notice whether you're withdrawing and what's the atmosphere in your home that would cause you to want to withdraw. So, number 2, escalation during an argument. Spiraling out of control, escalation. Escalation is when you are getting upset with each other and usually using the word you. You never, you always. You know, if you can avoid the word you with each other and pointing your finger at each other, watch how that immediately starts to calm your argument down. Ladies, the best thing you can do is figure out any way you can to keep the argument calm. You know why? Because males, our heart rate goes up almost twice as fast as yours during an argument, and when it hits 100 beats a minute, we lose the capacity to continue the argument rationally. We do one of two things. We either escalate and verbally abuse you, or we withdraw. I encourage wives to reach over to their husband's wrist and say, wow, you're 96, we got to stop this now. And remember, it takes a man about 20 minutes to start cooling down. So you don't want to restart your argument right away. Wait a while, 2 or 3 hours if you can, or the next day. Okay? You don't have, it's not earth-shaking that you have to solve that argument right now. Most of the time. Now, if you use the word you, that's called criticism. But if you use a word with the word you, it's called contempt. Like if you call your mate an idiot, you idiot, I can't believe you thought to do that. Or you diphthong, you know, or you slime bag. Anything that you say, you add a word to the word you, that's contempt. That does more damage to get the thing out of control. And you'll see again in the second hour how damaging that is. It's like the woman and the man that were not speaking to each other at breakfast one morning, and he just said, use the word you again. Of course, they were already in conflict. He said, you never get up and make me a hot meal in the morning. And then watch how she used contempt. You lazy bum. If you want a hot meal, light your cornflakes on fire. Okay? Now, that is escalation, right? It's contempt. See, it's worse than just using the word you because you've added a few words to the word, okay? Does that make sense? Have a little rule in your home. Very important. Second half of my book, Making Love Last Forever, gives 20-some different rules that you can pick from. You don't have to pick them all, but one of them is don't use the word you when you argue. It's real important. Former professional football friend of mine, 2 Super Bowl rings from Miami, told me the story. When he was on his honeymoon, he and his wife were arguing in the airplane, in the taxi, in the hotel lobby, up in their hotel room. First night on their honeymoon. It's not a good thing to do. He got so sick of the argument, he took off his great big pants, he was a lineman, and held them up and threw them over to her. She catches them and he says, put those on. She says, my kidneys are huge. He said, that's right. And I just want to establish tonight who wears the pants in this home. Can you imagine how motivated that honeymoon night was? Okay? This is what she did. She took a little pair of panties out of her suitcase, real thin things, and she stretched them out and shot them over to him. He catches them. She said, "Get into those." He said, "I can't." She said, "That's right, and you never will until you change your attitude." That's escalation, right? Okay? Now, just the main thing is just look at your relationship and say, are we escalating a lot? You know, can we argue in a way that, you know what's really fascinating? I've been married 32 years, okay? The last 5 years have been the best because we feel so safe in arguing now because of the method you're going to hear in just a few moments. It's just amazing. And I've not said this to any city yet, but we have a new method that we've only used 3 times in the last 5 years, but it is awesome. We have a 911 group. It's 3 people in their 40s who love us. They love us deeply, and we love them. They're really close friends. These people would, you know, go to the end for us. I mean, that's the same way we feel about them. There were 3 big subjects that my wife and I could not discuss. One of them was the will for our kids. I thought she was so off the wall about her ideas in the will. I said I was embarrassed that she even wanted to suggest them to a lawyer. I was embarrassed. And she thought I was so wrong that I was going to damage the kids somehow. And boy, we locked in every time we began to... See, we couldn't even go to the lawyer to get it worked out because we were fighting before we could get there, and I didn't want to go and expose that amount of disharmony with one of America's counselors, you know. And so... I figured we had to get this, but we couldn't solve it, ladies and gentlemen. It was not solvable. Every time we talked, I believed I was 100% right, and she thought she was 100% right. So we went to our 911 group for 3 hours on that one, and within 3 hours, it was solved. And we haven't had to revisit it once. It's amazing. They're like our grand jury. They're like our accountability support group. It's a powerful idea. I don't recommend use it all the time. But boy, when it's an emergency, now we feel safe as could be. And one other thing that can change your marriage tonight, I'm talking it can change your friendships. It can change your family with your kids tonight. If you agreed as husband and wife or as friends to do this, I guarantee it'll change your life. Dr. John Gottman, one of the world experts in divorce prevention, marriage enrichment, University of Washington, Seattle, discovered after long-term research with couples who stay married 40, 50, 60 years and stay in love, these couples all have something in common, every one of them that he's researched. They all have a ratio of 5 positive experiences to 1 negative on the average. 5 to 1. Is that something? These couples seem to have a sense internally when things are getting too negative. They know how to have fun. They know how to enjoy themselves. So guess what these researchers suggested that my wife and I have been doing for 1.5 years now, and I'm telling you, it works like unbelievably powerful. We no longer mix arguments with our fun times. We don't do it anymore. It's over for us. Vacations, a date, a drive Sunday afternoon. If it's going to be fun, we agree that we want to do it. Antiquing or whatever you do that's fun, we don't argue anymore. As soon as we hit the car, arguments are done. It's usually my wife that says, we agreed not to argue, remember? Oh, that's right. And you know that one time in 1.5 years, if either one of us brought up what we were about to argue about when we got home? Not once. Just think how many good times I wrecked because I started a fight. I just said, well, we haven't been together for a while. Why don't we argue on the way to Springfield, 30 miles away, you know? And we would, and sometimes we'd get so upset with each other, we'd turn around and go home. And didn't even make it to what we were going to have fun doing. Then we'd apologize and have to go through all that. See, we want 5 to 1 in our life. 5 positives to 1 negative. Isn't that amazing? Change your life today if you agree. And I know it works because I watch it work. And I'm really aggressive, so if it works with old Smalley, you know, I'd probably work with most of us. So what do we have? First is withdrawal. Second is escalation. Number 3, invalidating your mate's feelings or needs or their uniqueness. In other words, making fun of who that person is. belittling, degrading, like saying, oh, come on, lighten up, or you're always so upset by stuff like that, or anything you do that tells your mate they're strange, or they're not normal, or they're just off the wall, they're not like you, that's called invalidation. If it happens a lot, it weakens the relationship. Like 5 months ago now, in my home, I have kind of a lodgy home, we do. It's got wood ceilings, wood floors, it's got, kind of lodgy-looking rugs and couches and chairs, and it's got antique, like snowshoes on the wall, and it's got a couple of deer heads on the wall and stuff like that you can get at stores and stuff like that. And so, the stuff you buy at those antiques places, okay? And so, it just looks lodgy, but it didn't look complete to me. What would make it look really like a lodge? What's it need to have a real lodgy look? A moose head. Excellent, okay? I found one on sale 5 months ago. 1/3 the original price. And I thought, whoa, because I've been watching for them, okay? And so I got it to surprise Norma. Okay? You get the feeling here, don't you? And you know where I put it? On the entryway fireplace that she sort of decorated Victorian. Hey, looked like it fit there to me. Okay, so what I did was I surprised her. It took several guys, because they're really heavy, to put it up, drill a big hole in the fireplace. Hey, you're going to put a moose head up, you got to really put it up there, okay? So she comes home, because she runs our whole organization. She comes around through the kitchen. I say, hey, stop! Close your eyes. I got a really big surprise for you. You're going to love this. She comes around, opens her eyes. I said, look! And she goes, oh, I hate that. And she says, get that down now. And I said, it's great. It'll grow on you. And she said, I don't want that growing on me. Let it grow on you. And so I said, I can't get it down right away, obviously, because it takes several guys and they're gone, so we just have to leave it up for a while and see how you like it, okay? Well, she made several comments about it every time she'd walk by. And so I got the drift eventually, that wasn't a real popular thing in our house. Now, here's what I've learned about some women, and watch how this works, guys. Have you ever noticed that most men do not register at a department store before they get married? How many of you guys registered at a local hardware store before you got married? Okay, I'm talking about like register for that drill, Black & Decker, and you said to yourself, if I don't get all the bits, right away, that's okay, I can get them over time. We never think stuff like that. How many of you women registered before your wedding? Just out of curiosity, okay? See the hands, guys? And they usually drag us to that department store where we're sitting there watching them pick out all this stuff. What are they picking out, guys? They're picking out plates with a pattern, aren't they? Little saucers and little cups and little goblets and stuff. They got patterns, right, guys? You know what these women have told me they're doing? These are reflections of who they are. They identify with that. They connect to that, guys. Okay? And so they connect to everything. They connect to the couches, the rugs, the pictures on the wall, the food. You can say at dinner time as a man, where'd we get this meat? And your wife would go, you don't like the meat? No, I just want to know where we got the meat, what store. And she says, you don't like this meal, do you? Now, I wasn't talking about the meal. You don't like my cooking, do you? Hey, I'm not talking about your cooking. You don't like my mother, do you? Hey, what's the meat have to do with your mother? Okay? That's because women tend to connect to everything. And it's just the whole computer pops up and the whole connection is there, okay? But it's really hard for a lot of men to understand that, basically, all right? So watch how fascinating this is. With the moose head, I asked her, how do you really feel about this moose head? Tell me how you really feel, okay? And she said, I'll tell you how I really feel is I'm embarrassed. She said, when our friends come over, I'm going to be very embarrassed with this monstrosity up here. And I said, so in other words, I'm hearing you say you're embarrassed. And then she said, I just hate it. It doesn't go in this area. I said, all right, okay, I'll take it down. Now, there's other things up there. There's like an antique gun that I love and stuff like that's okay with her. It's not her favorite. But the moose went over the line, okay? And I understood that. But see, I could have invalidated her. I could have made fun of her like, oh, come on. You're so picky or you're so this. Or see, what that does is it's called invalidation. She could do the same with me. And it would be invalidation. Making fun of who I am. See, every one of us are like our fingerprints. We're very unique and different. We need to be treasured by our mate. instead of belittled, which is exactly. I bet you there's not a guy here that would have figured this out. Dr. John Gottman also did this study. What do you think is the single greatest thing a husband does that motivates his wife sexually? What did I hear back there? You know what these gals have said nationwide? Helping with housework. Guys, does that make sense to us? That a vacuum cleaner could turn your wife on? Helping the kids get ready for church or school, those things turn a wife on. Does that make sense to us? Wrestling with our kids? No, it doesn't make sense. But I've been asking women all across this nation, why would that be? I wonder if it's because they're connected to everything. It's part of who they are. Chairs, the rug, the dishes, and all that, okay? As we start taking care of these things and maintaining them and cleaning them, that's really like being involved with them personally. Isn't that interesting? How many of you ladies would identify with that to a degree? Let's see your hand. See that, guys? It's been amazing. I don't understand it any more than you do. But it's fascinating to discover it. Did you know that they did another survey and asked men what you enjoy most doing with your wife, and women, what do you most enjoy doing with your husband? And men had sex as either number 1 or 2. They enjoyed doing with their wife. Guess where women put sex with their husband? Number 13. And guys, guess what was 12? Gardening with us. It's not one of their top priorities, is it, guys? Are we different or what? Okay? All right? So, what do we got? We've got withdrawal during an argument. We've got escalation. We've got invalidation or making fun of each other. Last but not least is anytime you start developing a negative belief, a belief that says, my mate is doing something on purpose to ruin this marriage. If you believe it, you'll see it and hear it. Because that's how powerful belief is. So it's much better to find out, is it the truth? There are women, and some of you may be in this room, who believe that their husband lies in bed at night thinking of ways of straining their marriage. And I tell women all over the world that is not true. Most of those things just come natural to us. You know, we are not premeditating any of that stuff because we're so different than you. And if you understand that, it's so vital to the harmony of your marriage. It's not a good idea to start believing your mate's doing something on purpose. So we've got escalation, withdrawal, escalation, invalidation, and false belief. Those are the 4 things that wreck your marriage or your friendship or your parenting. Now, what's the communication method that gives you instant intimacy and eliminates all 4 of these exactly at the same time? It's called drive-through talking. How many of you have been to a fast food restaurant like McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, at least once in the last month? Let's see your hand, okay? Now listen to this, guys. This is really powerful. And ladies, if you use this method, which is as easy as ordering a hamburger at McDonald's, if you use this method, you eliminate all 4 of those, plus you get instant intimacy. Now McDonald's has spent millions of dollars researching this. They know what makes a happy customer. We can do the exact same thing in our home to make a happy mate or a friend or a child. Watch how it works. You're going to see it, and then I'm going to expand a little bit about Hawaii, and then I'll even let you practice for a few seconds, not in a serious, real complicated way, but you'll be able to practice it. So if you can remember this, it's a rule for fighting that's honoring instead of dishonoring. Watch this.
Thank you for coming to Burger Doodle. Hope you're having a great day. May I take your order, please? May I say, sir, that's a really nice jacket.
Thank you. Am I at the right place?
May I take your order, please?
Let's see. I want a hamburger, no pickles, a large fry, regular cola, and an ice cream sundae with chocolate.
I got a cheeseburger with extra pickles, a small fry, a medium Dr. Pepper, and a chocolate shake. Would you like a pie with that?
What?
Would you like a pie with that?
No, I'm sorry. I think there's been some misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding?
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. Our goal here at Burgerdoodle is to get your order 100% right. I'm terribly sorry about that. May I have the opportunity to try again?
Okay. Are you sure I'm at the right place?
May I take your order again?
I want a hamburger, no pickles.
A hamburger, no pickles.
Uh-huh. A large fry.
A large fry.
Right. A regular cola.
A regular cola.
Yeah. And an ice cream sundae with chocolate.
And an ice cream sundae with chocolate.
Yes.
Would you like a pie with that?
No, I don't think so.
Drive to the window, please.
Okay.
Here's your hamburger, no pickles, large fry, regular cola, and an ice cream sundae with chocolate.
Thank you.
Would you like anything else?
No, I don't think so.
You know, when I was preparing your order, I thought, that's an excellent order.
Really?
You know, I think that's the best order I've taken today.
No kidding.
In fact, I think that's the best order I've ever taken in my whole life.
Wow.
I hope you'll come back to see us.
I will. I will. I think she likes me.
The reason we use this ordinary example is that's the same method we can use in our home. Now watch how I go back to Hawaii, which we don't argue anymore on vacation, but let's say we happen to, okay? We would say, let's play drive-through talking, or let's use drive-through talking. You can literally say to each other, if you get into an argument where it starts to get out of control, so let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll use drive-through talking. Drive-through talking means that one person's in the car, the other person's inside the restaurant. The person in the car can only do two things. They can only share their feelings and their needs. Nothing else. Ladies, if you're in the car, you cannot bring up the history of your marriage. See, there are women who can remember what we did to them 10 years ago and what we were wearing when we did it, right? Okay? But see, the rule is you can't do that. You can only take ownership of your own feelings, ownership of your own needs, and share them. Because this is how I could have done it in Hawaii. I could have said, honey, let me throw you the steering wheel. Let's do drive-through talking. I'm inside McDonald's, so I say, hi, welcome to the Smalley home. Can I take your order? And she would have said, yes. I'm feeling very frustrated right now because you woke me up an hour before I wanted to get up. And then I repeat the order. I think I just heard you say that you are very frustrated because I woke you up an hour before you wanted to get up. She'd say, yes, I got it right. And I'd say, would you like anything else with that? Would you like fries with that? And she would say, yes, I have a need. I had a need to sleep a little longer. I would have repeated that. And I'm kind of fearful to talk about marriage goals over here because we could get into an argument. And I would have repeated that. And I would have said anything else, and she would have said, no, that's it. Because see, you can only talk about your feelings about this conflict that you're discussing now, not all your conflicts you've had in the history of your marriage. Just that one. That's the rule, which calms everybody down. I feel safe as a man. I say, please drive to the window. I hand her a bag. I say, nice order, ma'am. Feelings and needs, and I hand them all to her. And I go through them again, make sure I got them right. And I say, might I just add that those are probably the best feelings and needs I've heard all day. Maybe the best I've heard my whole life. Because I'm valuing her needs. It's not enough just to understand. I value them. They're hers. They're not mine. Does it mean I have to agree with everything she says? No. Does it mean I have to adjust my life now? No, I'm not a slave to this. It just means that I have to understand and value them because I get my turn. So I jump in the car. She gets inside. I come around. She says, welcome to the Smalley home. Gets all of my feelings and needs, repeats them back, values them. I drive to the window. She hands them to me. She says, sir, might I add great feelings and needs. And I would have told her I was frustrated and hurt that she said those things to me and stuff. We would have got all that on the table. Once you get both of your feelings and needs understood and valued by each other, watch how the solution to the problem is almost always obvious. I'm going to have you practice just for a few seconds. What I'd like to have you do is share with your mate or your friend, or if your kids are with you, include everybody, but I want you to share your favorite meal with your mate and then have them repeat it back, and then at the end they'll say, wow, what an excellent combination of food, because it's their favorite meal, and then reverse it. So each of you get to do that. Doesn't mean you have to start eating that food. You're just saying that you value what they said. Okay, on your mark, get set, go. still have a favorite meal? Good. And if you're here alone, say it to yourself and then repeat it back to yourself. Say, what an excellent choice of food. Okay, that's plenty of time because you can use this method. Remember, you don't have to use it just when you're arguing. You can use this method anytime you want just to get intimate. And anytime you want, and it's my preferred method. And again, it's in the second half of this new book, Making Love Last Forever, and I expand it called Drive-Through Talking. My wife and I have made a decision, and years ago, and we still intend to keep this, that we're going to keep helping families right to the end of our life. We both have decided to do that because we're very excited and motivated to do it, okay? But we both agree, and I think you would agree, that if we're ever really going to see a major change in America, change with our marriages and our families, it's not going to be from some new government program, right? I think we both agree that what it's going to take is one couple at a time, listening to these 4 risk factors, deciding to calm down, get a method like drive-through talking, where our marriages start being enriched and our kids can see mom and dad using that method. Because they can use it in dating, they can use it with their friends. That's what's going to change America. In fact, that's what's going to make love last forever. Thank you very much. One of the things that absolutely amazes me and is so vitally important is that all 4 of these risk factors that we shared, the withdrawal, the escalation, the invalidation, those false beliefs, they all melt into one word. So tonight when you leave, I'm excited about you being aware that when they melt into this one word, it's this word that kills our love for each other. Friendships, parenting, or mate. The word is anger. And it's really hidden anger because a lot of us don't even know we have it. And I didn't. When I was so angry at 35 years of age towards a boss that I saw manipulating me to get me fired, I became so angry that I wanted revenge. I was so discouraged. I saw so many negative things start happening in my life, but the biggest things I saw in my relationship with my wife and kids start to wane. I saw my love for people around me, my love for God, my love for the Lord. I saw it waning. And I really did panic, thinking, what in the world is wrong? For 2 years, I searched for what was going wrong with me, and I never connected it to anger. Now what we know is that anger is made up of fear, frustration, and hurt. Fear, frustration, and hurt. Those things happen with all 4 of those every day. And as anger melts inside of us, gradually, little by little, just think how many times you've been angry or frustrated or fearful, and it melted inside your heart. And we always bury anger alive. And it starts to grow like a fungus on our heart. And it grows and grows, and that's why age 5 to 7 years in marriage, our love is gone. And we say, what did I ever like about this person? It's because the anger got too big. We all have anger lumps in our heart, small maybe or large with others. So this anger grows inside of us, and we don't even know. I mean, we could be angry at anything. Think about it. You can be angry at your neighbor's dog barking, and that can start growing up inside. You know, you can be angry at your boss, your friend. You can be angry at each other, your kids, teenagers, whatever. It doesn't really matter where the anger comes from. As we start to load it up in our heart, it starts to deteriorate our love. I could be angry tonight about my hair. Look at it. Some of you saw me on these videos where I had hair, okay? I'm telling you, I have more hair in my brush than I do on my head, I can guarantee you. You can see it's going fast, okay? In fact, I asked the guy who cuts my hair several months ago, just between the 2 of us, do you think I'm going to keep losing my hair the older I get? And he said, no. He said, at your age, you don't lose any more hair. I said, really? He said, yeah. It just redistributes itself. You see, it comes out your ears, your nose, your back. When I go get a haircut, I mean, I literally get my ears cut and, you know, I don't get my back cut, but eyebrows, you know, like, and when I do my ears, you know, with a Q-tip, I have to put shampoo on it just to get through the old people, okay? I mean, I know I'm getting older, but I'm not as old as some of the guys I play golf with. Now, these guys are really old. These are the kind of guys that bet on their golf game, you know? And so they are so old that they settle up after every hole. That's how old they are. See, I'm not that old, because they don't know if they're going to make it all the way to the end. Well, this is a good news, bad news session also. And this is a life-changing session for me. I mean, my life has never been the same once this was taught to me and I became aware of the truth of it. The good news is this. I can be, and I have for the last 5 years, and sort of did it in a sense even before that, but boy, real specific the last 5 years, I have taken 100% responsibility for all of my emotions. Think about that. I'm responsible for all my emotions. If I don't like the emotions I have, then I know that my emotions are coming from my choices. My choices with God, my choices with the Lord, my choices with people, my choices in how I respond. All my choices that I make determine my emotions. I now know that what I choose today determines my emotions tomorrow and the days to come. I love that. Because the bad news is I can't blame people anymore. I'm all done blaming. I can't blame my wife if I'm unhappy or disgruntled about anything. I can't blame my kids. I can't blame my neighbor. I can't blame the dog. I can't blame circumstances. Nothing at all in my life is blamed now for how I'm feeling. I look inside and say, what choices have I been making? What choices do I need to make now? I was kind of like the guy who was so disgusted with life, he checked out. He joined a lay monastery. You know, have you heard of this guy? And all you could do is pray in this monastery, and you could only speak 2 words every 5 years. So the first 5 years, he went in to see the Monsignor, and he said, you can speak your 2 words. And he said, bad food. That was it, okay? So then another 5 years he's been there. So he comes in, the Monsignor says, you can speak your 2 words. He says, hard bed. Okay, he says, all right. So the next 5 years, and he's been there 15 years. He comes in, the Monsignor says, you can speak your 2 words now. And he says, I quit. And the Monsignor says, well, I'm not surprised. All you've done is complain since you've been here. See, this is me. This was me. I mean, I complained about everything. I used to criticize my wife. If you would change this, if you would change that, I could be happy. I don't do that anymore. Because now I realize that my choices, and you know, we always have at least 2 choices. You have your first knee-jerk choice that we all have. I mean, anything. I mean, let's face it, if your mother held your head under the water too long when you were a little kid, okay, you're going to have maybe a bad first choice. Something that's not going to lead to some great emotions, but you've got a second choice in a few hours or even a day. You've got a third choice, a fourth choice. We don't have to stick with one choice. People, for example, who choose anger, that's sometimes their first choice, but you don't have to choose that. You can choose something else that brings life. Let me show you how one event in my home produced 5 different choices in my family. 3 kids, my wife and I. I ran my very first marathon when I was 42 years of age. Well, my very first marathon. My first and last marathon, okay? I've run a marathon, and took a lot out of me. All right, so anybody can basically do that, show you how to get ready for it. So I had gotten ready, you know, the day came, I was all pumped. My family was there. I said, I'll see you along the way, you know, get different places so I can see you. They said, okay, so I'm running this marathon, you know. And actually, for the first half of this thing, I thought, whoa, because it was uphill. And I actually heard a guy say, "Attention's runner, you just finished the halfway mark." I was dead. And I thought, oh, how in the world am I ever going to go? Another 13 miles, over 13 miles. And so I'm just running. I see my family got energized at the 18-mile mark. And when I saw him, I grabbed him, I hugged him, it was all sweaty, you know, we were in the street going like, Rocky, Rocky. So I was thrilled, okay? We got so caught up in the emotion that my 2 boys joined me. Mike was about 9, Greg was about 12. And they ran with me. Mom never gets out of control on stuff like this because there's thousands of people lying in the street and she would never allow this, but we just got worked up and did it. So about 3 miles into this thing, Michael says, Dad, I am dying. I can't do this anymore. I says, well, Mike, I said, why did you join me? I said, this is really important. I said, why don't you stay right here? Don't move. And I'll tell Mom where you are when I see her next and she'll come and get you. He said, okay, Dad. So then I keep running and Greg, drops back and so I keep running. I see her at the 22-mile mark. And I grab her again, give her a big sweaty hug, and I said, hey, Michael's at such and such a corner. She says, okay, I'll get the car, go get him, and so then I keep running. I get to the very end, and I see the finish, big banner. I see the finish line. I go, whoa, I made it. So I decide to really impress my family and friends, and I sprint the last block. I'm really going, okay? And I go across the finish line, and about 5 paramedics grab me and take me over to a tent, put me in a cot, and give me some kind of liquid. And then I came to. But I wasn't aware I'd gone anywhere until I came to, okay? And so they saw something that I didn't know was there. And so when I came to, priority, first things first. And so I said, hey, where do you get your T-shirt? So, they told me where it was. And then I found my family, okay? I found Norma and Greg and Carrie. And I gave them all a big hug, and Norma wasn't responsive at all. So I said, what's wrong? She says, well, I hate to wreck your time, but she said, we can't find Mike. We've lost him. Now, this was the time in Phoenix, Arizona, where I ran that race, where a guy was kidnapping little boys about Michael's age and taking them out the desert and attacking them, and many of those little kids didn't come back. And so I could see the fear in Norma's face. So I said, well, why didn't you go get him? I told you what block he was on because I didn't have any energy left anyway. So my initial choice was irritation with my wife, which wasn't real smart. But I was irritated because I figured, why would she lose Michael when she should have gone to get him? And Carrie's first choice was to comfort Mom. She was comforting her. Mom, it's okay. We'll find him. I'm sure we'll find him. She was fearful. Now, Greg's first choice was sort of a 12-year-old's choice, sort of a serious, casual response, okay? So I said, well, I'll go get it then. I'll get the car. I'll go find him. So here I'm irritated. So I go over and she said, well, you're not going to be able to get in because the police blocked me. Ugh. So I took a former professional football friend of mine and we went over and got right up to get my car, and the police came over and blocked me and said, excuse me, sir, but that's, a restricted area until the race is over. I said, you don't understand. We've lost my son. I got to get in there and get my car. I got to go looking for him. Sir, you're not allowed in there. I'm sorry. I'd like to let you in, but I can't. Well, you don't understand. Are you listening to me? We've lost my son. I got to get my car. So I'm really irritated now at the police. I'm angry. So I get right in his face and I said, you're not blocking me. I'm going, okay? He said, I'm telling you, sir. And Greg starts grabbing on me. He says, Dad, I need to talk to you. I said, Greg, I'm busy. He said, Dad, I need to talk to you. I said, what? So he pulls me away from everyone. He says, Dad, if we don't find Mike, can I have his bedroom? I said, you are the strangest kid I have ever known. Here, we've lost your brother. I'm in a confrontation. He said, Dad, that's the point. I'm trying to calm you down. Don't you realize you're going to get arrested? I said, well? And he says, let me negotiate this. He's 12 years old. No one who wants to be a counselor. So he tried. He couldn't get anywhere anyway, so then we just all had to wait, okay? So it's Greg's first response, okay, sort of playfully serious. My first response is irritation and anger. Norma's first response is fear. Carrie's is comforting. We wait and we wait and we wait for Michael. He finally shows up with a whole bunch of people that were in that race. Have you ever been to a marathon? Have you been to the end? He came walking in with people who are bleeding and limping, and it's a pathetic sight. I mean, it's really amazing. I didn't know this happened. So he sees us, and he's so excited. He's happy. Dad, Mom, everybody comes over and high fives us. He's thrilled. That was his initial response. 5 members of a family, 5 choices. All initial choices, which are normal for each of us, but that doesn't mean we have to stay there. What happens if Carrie kept her comforting first choice in a week? What would she feel like? Probably okay. Her emotions would be okay. What about Michael's emotions? It'd be great. Be positive. Greg's probably okay. Strange kid. He'd be okay, okay? What about mom's emotions a week from now? If she kept fear. Let's say she played the videotape of fear over and over again, picturing what it would have been like if we'd have lost Mike out there in that desert with that weird guy that was doing that. She would have had some pretty negative emotions. Because fear is one of the major ingredients of anger. Irritation is frustration. You ever heard the word stress? Have you ever been stressed lately? Let's see your hands. There's some stress, okay? You know what the word stress has been made up by our culture? It's a socially acceptable word for the word anger. Stress is just frustration. We had an expectation of something and it didn't happen. So we're stressed, which is frustration, or hurt, or fearful. All of us as a nation are way too stressed. And what are going to be our emotions? What would be my emotions in a week if I kept anger and played the tape of this police and, fought with them in my mind? I would have had some pretty negative emotions. The more anger we have in our heart, the scripture says, the more the words that pour out of our mouth are negative. It's like if you have putrid water in your heart, that is going to pour out of your mouth, putrid water. If you have pure water in your heart, you get pure water out. It's not real complicated. And all of us make those choices every day. I would love to have you leave tonight with the hair on the back of your neck starting to come up just about the word anger. Because I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of it. I could give you 30 or 40 to really make the hair on your head stand up. I'll just give you a couple. Look what happens to people who keep too much anger in their heart. Number one, they almost always sabotage their relationships. Because angry people can't give or receive love like God intended them to give. They can't do it. You know why? Because they're fearful. They're fearful internally that something's going to happen again, so they keep their distance from people. And they actually say and do things to keep people at a distance so they don't get too close. If you marry a person that's angry, try loving them. Tough. How many of you guys have been to Promise Keepers? Out of curiosity, look at the hands. Some of you guys are going to get so fired up someday with a message at Promise Keeper, and you're going to come home with a renewed commitment to really love your wife as God has called you to love her. You know what's going to happen? She's not going to receive it if she has too much anger. Angry people sabotage. The most dramatic case I ever saw was a couple who had been married for 17 years. I tried for 3 years, guys, to help this guy love his wife and for her to respond. He went to Promise Keepers. He did everything right. I was teaching him, training him over the phone and in letters. I spent a lot of time. He called me one day after 3 years and said, I'm leaving my wife today. I'm divorcing her. I said, no, come on. Where's your perseverance? Come on. You said you were going to. He said, you're not listening to me. Today. I said, why? He said, I woke up this morning and she was standing next to me with a big kitchen knife in her hand. And I said, that could motivate you to want to leave. And I know this may be hard for some of you to believe, but I actually saw a mayor of one of the largest cities in our country provoke his wife to such anger. She chose anger, that she took his .38 pistol and shot him in the stomach. That's sabotage. Is that the understatement? Or what? Do you know that 6 months that man worked diligently to drain her of anger, and she literally fell back in love with him? Now that is dramatic. Because I know that when people start unloading their anger, the very emotions that they wanted to have, because she chose some new things, okay? That's one of them. Listen to this one here. This one doesn't do it, then I don't know what will. How many of you are aware of the scripture that says, if you stay angry with a brother or sister, you move into darkness and you cannot walk in the light of God any longer? If you wander around as a blind person in the dark, whoa. Have you ever wondered why the Lord's Prayer? How many of you have prayed the Lord's Prayer at least one time in your life? Let's just see your hands. I don't care, okay? All right? Have you ever wondered why the scripture says, if you don't forgive those who trespass against you, then God won't forgive you? He says, I won't forgive you unless you forgive those that trespass against you. He says, then I will forgive you. Why? Because angry people can have no fellowship, basically, with God. Because he doesn't walk in darkness. He's not there in darkness. Just think of that. If you want the love of God in your heart, if some of you are even praying for an awakening in your church, but there's a lot of angry people in your church, it doesn't happen. That's why it says, be angry, but don't sin in your anger. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, lest you give a foothold to the enemy. Whoa. No wonder I was having such a struggle in my spiritual life when I was angry, because I wasn't walking with God. Provoke your teenagers to anger and then take them to church. They don't get anything out of church. They can't. They're in darkness. Did you hear about the teenager who had long hair? His dad said, no, for the last time I'm telling you, you're not driving the family car. He was 16 years old, okay? You're not driving it until you cut your hair. Teenager said, yeah, Dad, I've been thinking about that. You know, Jesus had long hair. Dad said, yeah, and he walked everywhere he went. Okay. Now, but where does that come from? It comes from anger. People get angry, and then they stay angry, and then what happens is that they move into darkness, and they can't fellowship with God. And therefore, we don't enjoy fellowship with each other. We don't enjoy the Word. The greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life was my own walk with the Lord. The power, the life, the renewal that came into my life. But when I got angry, I lost it. Never knew why. Never knew that the little bits of fear and frustration and hurt had built up in my heart. It's kind of like, did you know, in fact, I don't know if you knew this, but this is a real important message to the guys. Did you know that if you hold too much anger in your heart, a certain level, you can increase your chances of a heart attack 6 times over normal? That's what anger does. How many doctors have said to me, and how many reports have I read, medical reports, that the general practitioners have reported these studies, that about 80% of their patients that come to them for the minor aches and pains are there because they have too much anger. See, my brother was a very angry person. My dad was very angry. My dad injected my brother with anger. My older brother was angry. My brother, when he was 51 years of age, died of a heart attack. I was 47. Whoa! I was just becoming good friends with him, developing a relationship with him. My oldest brother, who's still alive, had a major heart attack at 51 with a quadruple bypass in his heart. My father died in his middle 50s. What does that say about me? It says I don't have long to live, doesn't it? I'm 56. But when I was 47, I thought it was a death sentence. I thought I had a terminal disease. And so every year I did something different for my family. I made video, blessing my kids, and I wept, when I was 49 and my wife was a year older and she was 50, I had a major party for her at 50 because I said, sweetheart, I only have 2 years left to live. It really hit me. And so I actually checked myself into the Cooper Clinic in Dallas, Texas, when I was 51 years old because I wanted to know how long I had to live. Because I was really afraid to even know all this stuff. And so I went to this place and they test everything that moves on your body for a whole day, okay? In fact, I got nervous when the person who registered me there asked me if I could pay in cash. And so I thought, well, what does she know about my history but at one point the doctor actually put a television camera in a real inappropriate place, and he said, I'm going to take a right turn here, and he said, hold on. I went, whoa. So anyway, I thought my intestines were on the evening news, the way he talked. Anyway, when he was all done, I went into his office. He's a cardiologist. Went all alone in his office and sat there waiting for the report. And he took forever, and I thought, uh-oh, he doesn't know how to tell me I'm about dead. So he comes in and he sits down at his desk and he's silent. He's not saying a word. And he just stares at me. I'm thinking, he doesn't know what to say. And so I break the silence by saying, it's really interesting a doctor like you would have a picture of the Titanic right over here on your wall. And he said, you notice that, Mr. Smalley? I said, yeah. He said, you know why I have that up there on the wall? I said, no. He said, you know anything about the Titanic? said, no, not really. He said, Mr. Smalley leaned across his desk. He said, did you know that that captain was warned 6 separate times to slow down, turn south into warmer waters that night that he hit that iceberg? 6 times, Mr. Smalley. He said, wow, I didn't know that. He thought that ship was unsinkable. He said, Mr. Smalley, I'd like to ask you a real important question. How many times have you been warned to change your lifestyle, to eat differently, to slow down, go south, get into warmer water, about your heart? And I said, a lot of times? He said, Mr. Smalley, you know about your brother, right? And I said, yeah. Your dad? Yeah. Your older brother? Yeah. He said, a more important question, Mr. Smalley. He leans down, he stares at me. How many more warnings is it going to take before you finally listen? And I said, today? And I mean, he laid out the results of that test. He had me right where he wanted me. And I listened. And you know what's happened? I've had a test recently, and the cardiologist said that my heart is kind of like a baby's heart now, because I'm doing the stuff they're telling me to do. Taking that medicine, Zocor, is that what it is? And all this other stuff. I even take a powder. You have a prescription that doesn't let fatty foods get digested. They ought to sell that over the counter. That would really be a great product, wouldn't it? And I mean, you know what else I've done? This has changed my life. I'm 56, and I would never have done a tour like this around the nation, 30-city tour, if this hadn't happened. You're talking about an amazing thing that God allowed me to see. A year and a half ago, my wife said to me, I love you, but I can't sleep with you anymore. I said, what? She said, I can't sleep next to a diesel engine any longer. How many of you guys and gals snore, just out of curiosity? Okay, look at this. That's what I did, okay? You know what I got recommended to do? I went to a hospital where they videotape you all night long, sleeping. I stopped breathing over 200 times. And some of those were up to 40 seconds. And when you see a video of it, you see your all these 15 different things they have wired up on you, and they all go flatline because you're not breathing. And all of a sudden, after 40 seconds, your lip goes, and you go, but you don't wake up because you don't know you're doing this. No wonder I never had any energy and I was falling asleep all the time. And I'd sit down and relax for a second because I used to have the hardest time driving. I was about to fall asleep all the time. Why? Because I wasn't getting the proper sleep every night. No wonder my brother and 2 brothers and dad had difficulty. They all snored. Probably had the same thing. I'm like a kid. I have so much energy now because I'm sleeping all night long. I got this little machine that blows air into my nose. I look like I'm in intensive care every night, but I'm alive, and it's amazing. But see, these are choices people make. So the real question is, what choices are we going to make? Like the time that my wife ran into our house with our camper, and sheared off the big section of the roof, and I pulled into the driveway. I had a choice to make. My first choice was not the one that God would want me to make, okay? I started thinking of lectures that I could give her, okay? Where'd she get her driver's license anywhere, Victoria's Secrets, or how much will this cost, and stuff like that. I wanted to lecture, okay? But I've found out over the years that lecturing somebody when they're angry or when they're upset, frustrated, see? Because she was hurt and frustrated already. So when I actually said, what am I going to do? And Greg was sitting next to me, he was about 9 or so, and he said, Dad, why don't you do what you teach? I said, what a great idea, okay? So I got out and walked towards my wife, and she came flying around the side of the house and started crying right away, And all I did was, you can do 3 things. Soft, touch, and listen. Watch that drain anger out of people. Touch, soft, and listen. Touch, soft, and listen. I put my arms around her, started to just hold her, because you can be nonverbal. Okay? I just held her, and she said, and I told the neighbors across the street, and they're watching to see how you're going to respond. Okay, so I just held her. See, that drains anger out of people. And hey, who's the hardest person to forgive? Ourselves. 2 years ago, Greg spoke for the first time, my son Greg, spoke for the first time in Louisville, Kentucky, where we're actually finishing up. And he messed up while he spoke. I mean, I introduced him. I have tears in my eyes. I was so proud as a father. I was so thrilled. I didn't want to sound too enthusiastic, because you know how kids are. If you get too hyper, they think they're doing something wrong. right? They shouldn't be doing this. So I introduce him. I sit in the first row, you know. He gets up to speak, and I didn't hear the introduction ahead of time. And here's how he introduced me. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so thrilled to be here and to be with my dad." He says, "I love being with him at times like this when he's sober." I went, "Oh, geez." I said, "Oh, this is going to be great. I should have heard everything he said." He says, "I'm just kidding. You know, he doesn't drink." So he went on, but he forgot where he was 3 times during the presentation. 3 times he forgot where he was. He got caught in his mouth. It was horrifying. I didn't help him because I realized he had to get through this alone. And when he finished, he ran off the stage, you know. Of course, everybody gave him a standing ovation. And I was convinced, you know, that they were just relieved that he was finally done, okay? So I went back to the back to be with him, and he was tears in his eyes, and he said, "Dad, I'm so embarrassed. I'm humiliated. You'll never let me speak, I'm sure, again." He says, I apologize, Dad. I feel terrible. And I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, "Greg, I want to give you some fatherly advice." I said, "I want you to remember this all your life, that it's always the darkest just before it goes totally black." And he high-fived me. He says, "Oh, I know it's not as bad as I'm making it." But now here's the key. He played the videotape in his head until about 10 o'clock that night. He got on his case. He said, "You idiot. You shouldn't have done this. Why did you embarrass everybody? You know, you embarrassed your wife, your family." He played that tape, and that's normal. But at 10 o'clock at night, he said the 2 words that all of us have to say. "Next time. Next time I'll do this. Next time I'll do that." And then he said, "You can look in the mirror if you need to. I forgive you. Okay, so you goofed up tonight, but I forgive you. It's okay because you're going to make it. You're going to go on because I really forgive you." If you have to say it out loud, because I know that some of you have done some pretty bad things. Remember when you were a kid and you did those things? Remember what you did, you know, when you were first married? Remember those things? I know what you did because you're human. Have you ever really taken the time to say, "I forgive you"? God does. He's willing to forgive us, but so many times we don't forgive ourselves. Because we don't even know that we have to and should. We don't know how much damage it does. I tell you, it does a lot of damage. Probably the most dramatic, and I close with this, the most dramatic story I've ever heard, and saw in my own life, was when I tried to counsel a 65-year-old father and his 28-year-old son. They had decided to try to figure out some way to become friends because they hated each other. And he had 4 children that he was going to start choosing to learn how to love them if he could. He was 65 years old, didn't have a relationship with his wife either. And I said, "Well, one choice at a time, okay? Let's start with him." So there's tension in the room. I'm in a hotel room with him. The son's sitting here, the father's sitting here. They don't even speak to each other, and hadn't for years. And so I said, "Now, whatever you do, let me be the coach. Don't do anything on your own. Let me coach this thing because it's a very fragile situation." So I start by saying to the son, "Could you help us understand what your relationship's like with your dad by rating it, like 0 to 10, 0 bad, 10 really great? Where would you put it with your dad?" Because then I was going to ask him over to take, you know, to start improving it. And he said, "Well, somewhere around probably a 1 or 2. And we both knew it was a 0. But he was looking down when he said it. And the dad stands up, and I haven't coached any of this. He stands up. I'm thinking, "Oh, don't do anything on your own, okay?" And he walks over close to his son, and he stands right above him, and he says, "Son, I'd like to say something to you before we continue." His son is like, "Oh, wow, what's he going to say?" And I'm thinking, oh. He says, "Son, I've never said this to you in my life, but it's time I'd say it. And I kick myself for not doing it. And I don't know why I haven't, but I'm ready to say it." And we're all just tension. He says, "I want you to know that I love you. And I'm very, very proud of you." And big tears well up in the son's eyes. Okay, sharp kid, graduate student, big major university. Of course, I'm thinking, oh, no, you know. And the son stands up. I'm going, oh, I haven't coached any of this. And the son says, "Dad, before we go on," big tears streaming down his cheek. He said, "I'd like to say something too." He said, "You don't know this, but all of my life, I have wanted to hear those words from you, but I never thought I'd ever hear them. And before we do anything else, I just want to thank you for coming today to tell me this." And they just melted it in each other's arms. And they just wept. And of course, I'm weeping out of control. The coach, you know. And they sit down, and the son says to the dad, "Dad, why don't we go play golf and talk about what we ought to do to start our friendship up?" And they left. And I said, wow, are you a good coach or what? I didn't do a thing. They forgave each other. And I saw anger drain right out on the floor. And it happened right in front of my eyes. A choice. Okay? See, that's one of the reasons. I started this actually 3 years ago, this book. And in page 32, I give you, turn right to it. Page 32, I have actually 32 questions that you can ask yourself to see if you have too much anger. Questions like, I have frequently reoccurring minor health problems. That can be maybe too much anger. I have doubts, a lot of doubts about the existence of God. Have you had a lot of doubts about the existence of God? It can be that. I struggle with feelings of low self-value. It's hard for me to forgive others. Here's a big one. It's easier for me to see the faults of others than to see my own faults. Big one. Doesn't mean that in every case, but if you see it overall and take the quiz and see where you are, I don't know where you are. But here's the key. You don't have to leave here tonight the same person that you came. If you've longed for years to have some kind of a meaningful spiritual relationship with the Lord, but you can't seem to connect, and maybe no one has ever even introduced the idea of too much anger could be in your heart. Way back to when you were a kid. You don't have to be the same. In fact, if I could be that doctor, my prescription to you would be, get a communication method that works for you too, that keeps you in love and keeps your relationship alive with the Lord. Second, face your anger and choose to get rid of it. First 4 chapters of this book are all how to get rid of anger. Recognize it and get rid of it. So let me take a vote. How many of you agree it's not a good idea to keep anger in your heart very long? Okay? Here's a more important vote. How many of you, starting tonight, are going to do your journey, make a choice that you're going to begin to learn whatever it takes to get rid of your anger? Let's see your hands. Okay, great. That's exactly what I was hoping for. And all I can say is, if we want our love to last forever, God bless you for making that choice. Thank you.